facts. Andrea, hello. How are you? How are you doing?
It's been a long time.
Should have left you without a dope beat. Step two, step two, step two, step two, sippity sip two, step to dip to do. That's it.
Come on. That's a great. They had money.
You need to use the bathroom?
Go! No! Go through! Woo!
Are you happy now?
Yes.
Aww, Mercy.
Now, is there anybody with a bigger?
Yeah. Georgia. Nice. How old is she?
So cute.
Ellie.
It's the motherfucking Eagle Double G.
Snoop Dogg.
Hold on, you guys stick your chin forward like this.
I hate my chin. I'm like, I was looking at it. I'm like, oh.
Ready?
Girls have so many problems.
Here's our Bachelorette. Say hi.
Hi.
I'm making a video.
Oh, a video. And here I am
Making
smiling.
a vodka, cranberry, and
A splash of Fresca.
And everyone is here. I need to put it in the fridge.
You
went out. That would have been
I had to buy a beer for myself only. I couldn't buy
Hey,
one for
Heather.
her. I'm like,
I just know a lot of cities.
I didn't have any beer.
Oh.
Here's a movie.
Oh.
New York, I would have been.
Halloween.
I'll start posing. Don't you think
like
twice.
one drink for
What?
one person is like
yeah.
what are you doing?
Video.
Everybody having a great time?
Chuck.
All right, so we got some people from Florida here, some people from Alabama, from all over. Guys, we're in Virginia. Oh, so you guys got a large group. Not
New
just
York.
Mexico.
California, Mexico, who knows?
Nashville.
Diverse backgrounds, I like it. Guys, we're gonna walk around for about a 90 to 100 minutes. We call this a half and half tour. Half history, half ghost stories. Because Savannah is one of the most, if not most, haunted cities in America. All right. We'll go through a little bit why later on, but just a basic primer without sounding. Come on through, guys. Without sounding too hippy dippy. All right. Take it back to the '60s here. You know, what is paranormal activity? All right, and why does Savannah?
Oh, I love that movie.
Some of the most amounts of it. All right. Paranormal activity is simply residual energy left over from somebody's life cut far too short. All right. Now, there's a lot of historical events here in Savannah that people's deaths surround. All right, principally the two main wars that were fought here, the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, as well as major epidemics for the first 120 years around yellow fever. All right. Additionally, we're walking around the 2.2 square mile historic district. In the entire district, there are 6 cemeteries, 5 of which were essentially built over. Now, I come from heritage from 2 of the 3 predominant peoples that impacted Savannah's history over the last 200 years. I'm Irish and Jewish. And one of the best examples is right here under the Independent Presbyterian Church over here is the entire first cemetery for the first Jewish settlers. Now, Jews were actually banned by Oglethorpe, who's here in the middle, at the beginning of the colony. Within 5 months, the yellow fever epidemic was so bad that when there was a ship of Jews in the harbor, they agreed to let them settle part of the west end of town in exchange for them to practice medicine because they had 4 or 5 doctors on board. But every Christmas time, something that I encourage you guys, you can look it up on YouTube, every Christmas time, usually around December 20th, the church, the Independent Presbyterian Church, and then the First Baptist Church, which is over here on the corner of the square.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
They have these dual caroling services, right? So it's just very remarkable to think that the first Jewish settlers every Christmas time get to get caroled simultaneously by 2 of the largest Anglican churches downtown. Now, every square was built to have a church. Every square was built to have a public fireplace because all of the houses were built by wood. So if you were cooking in your house and your house caught on fire, there's a good likelihood the entire block could catch on fire in a matter of hours. All right, and so there are a lot of stories about people dying in fires. All right. The other thing is that over the last 25 years, all in our lifetimes, Savannah's seen an incredible amount of restoration, renovation, rehabilitation of downtown buildings. And when you go through and you rip up a building that's 150 years old, you tend to find some really weird things. We'll talk a little bit about that after we go to our first bar. Last thing is just some ground rules. Come on through, guys. Some ground rules. You'll notice that I put you guys off the sidewalk. When we stop to do some stories, I'll kind of huddle us around in an area so we don't block the sidewalk. Number 1, because it's a nice thing to do. Number 2, because there's a couple little ladies riding around City of Savannah trucks tonight that are looking to see if we're blocking the pathways, or if we have more than 30 people in a group, or if I'm not wearing an ID. You know, all of those things will get me a little ticket on the spot for $150. So I'm not doing it just to be nice. I'm doing it because I don't want to get a ticket. All right. Last thing is, we're going into these bars. They don't expect you to have to down your drink. They know you're on a tour. Don't feel the need to chug. But we are in a downtown. You can carry any alcohol in a plastic cup. If you get a tall boy or a long neck, you just need to pour it into a plastic cup before you leave the bar, and you take it with us. All right. Anybody got any questions before we go? All right.
How many dead people are we standing on?
How many dead people are we standing right now in this square? Probably at least a few hundred. The last square.
We did the Savannah tour earlier.
Oh yeah.
I learned a lot.
I would say there's anywhere between 20 and 25,000 bodies buried in the historic district. Yeah. It was legal to bury people in your backyard until 10 years before the Civil War. So pretty much everybody who had service would just bury them in the backyard. And a lot of children are buried underneath houses here. There are a lot of gravestones in undercrawl spaces in the downtown area. I work in real estate now, full time.
Oh look, I'm back.
It's all for you. Like my birthday. My birthday's July 4th.
It's a shame.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. 30 in a couple of weeks.
Hi, Jen.
We're missing green
What you got? What you got?
Vodka cranberry.
What? Yes, girl. Yes, girl.
So once we get our
If you come here on St. Patrick's Day, really tough to get a beer inside. All right. It's a very historic building. It was built in 1850. If you look up between the second and third floor, you see the black struts coming out. In 1853, there was actually an earthquake in Savannah. And there's never been one since. A lot of property owners who had the money thought that it could start happening from time to time. And so they retrofitted a lot of the oldest buildings. This building has served as only 3 things in its entire history. It served as a tavern, it served as a grocery store, and it served as a Civil War hospital. Right? Now, in the fall of 1864, Sherman was bearing down on Savannah.
Yes, girl.
Right? Marched the scene, worked everything down until he got down here to Savannah. A lot of different stories on that. But the real stories that a lot of people don't understand is that this building was the Confederate hospital before Sherman got to town. Once Sherman occupied the city, four blocks north on Broughton Street, the Marshall House, a very beautiful, grand, historic hotel, that was the Union Field Hospital. And during, almost for the entire duration of Sherman's occupation, that hospital operated because there were still skirmishes in and around the 60, 70-mile radius into the low country of South Carolina and East Georgia. All right, so that weather that year was real particularly dreary. Now, in January this year, we got 3.5 inches of snow here in Savannah. First time in about 15 years. It shut this entire city down for 3.5 days. There was a famous picture on social media. Yeah, we got snow this year, 3.5 inches. In 26 hours, just over 1 day straight, 3.5 inches. There was a social media picture on Facebook of a city of Savannah truck with a big barrel of salt, and this guy shoveling salt from the back of the Savannah truck to the road, and that's the Savannah salt truck. Well, the weather in 1864 was particularly similar, but except that it lasted a lot longer. So it was really cold, it was raining, it was snowing, pretty much nonstop. And the orderlies in the Union Army at the field hospital after Sherman began his occupation here, they got really, really lazy. Now, can anybody think of what's the most common form of medicine administered during the Civil War? Amputations. Right on. All right.
My bad.
Now, amputations weren't just from bullet and shrapnel wounds, right? That was probably about 50 to 60%. But particularly on the Confederate side and the Union side later on, a lot of these soldiers were really poor. They didn't have shoes, most of them, or they wore barely functioning shoes. So they might just scrape up against a rock, cut their ankle open, bleed a little bit, walk it off. All of a sudden, 2 weeks later, that gets infected. Another week goes by, an infection creeps up the leg. All of a sudden, he can't walk. His buddies take him to the doctor. The doctor says, I got to cut the leg off if you want to live. And if you were lucky, your buddies would hold you down, give you a piece of leather to bite on, and the doctor went straight through with a hacksaw top to bottom, no stopping. And they would immediately sprinkle sawdust on that open wound, and then take a hot iron right out of the fire and cauterize it, right? Now immediately, most of the guys would just step back and see what happened next, because a lot of guys died in and around that moment. Blood loss and the shock of the pain, all right? Now the Marshall House, how do we know about these stories, right? The orderlies got so lazy, they were doing so many of these surgeries, that instead of taking the severed body parts out and burying them properly, eventually they got so lazy they just pulled the floorboards and threw them under there, all right? Now guys, in our lifetimes here, particularly in the late 1990s, there was a lot of restoration of buildings. All right, 1991, a guy named John Barrett moved down to Savannah, wrote a book called Midnight in the Garden of Good People. Really, it's called The Book here by locals. That became a movie in 1996. Forrest Gump came out in 1995. There's a couple other B-list movies later on in the later decade, and a lot of that was boosted the tourism. All right, so because of the influx of tourists, we decided to renovate and rehab a lot of old buildings. So the Marshall House, which had served as the Union Field Hospital, in 1999, when new owners got a hold of it, it had been shuttered for almost 50 straight years. The entire front facade, the second floor porch, none of that was there. It was all boarded up. Right? So it was a $10 million project. They ripped up all the flooring. They ripped up the flooring and found 137 separate unique bone fragments, mostly legs, but a lot of arms, and some full torsos, a few skulls. Now, the bar and restaurant on the first floor of the Marshall House is called 45 Bistro. And it's a more swanky, upscale restaurant bar. So they close, about 12 or 1. Most of the bars, like the Donuts, close at 3 a.m. every night. Last call's at 2:45, except Saturday nights, which is 1:45, which is the Bible Bell. And over there, they close about 12:31 every night, so they're out of there by 2. Now, between 12 and 6 a.m., we like to call these the witching hours, all right? This is the most likely time you're going to see paranormal activity. And the waiters and waitresses and the bartenders specifically who are closing up, they report that when they're closing between 12:30, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, they constantly hear the sound of squeaking above the bar. It sounds like squeaking of a gurney. Another problem is directly above the bar is the storage room, no hotel rooms. There's an office for the manager up there. Directly above the bar on the left-hand side of the building is nothing. So that noise is just a very audible effect left over from the countless number of surgeries that we've done in that building. All right, flashback here. All right, we've done this, changed ownership change several times after the Civil War. The turn of the century, it became a grocery store, right? Of course, Prohibition.
It looks really haunted.
And colonial era cemetery of those 6 that I told you about at the beginning of the tour. No greater example of why Savannah's most haunted city in America than this cemetery. There are approximately 615, give or take, headstones here in the cemetery. There's roughly 8,000 bodies buried here. Lots of bodies. Thinking that would stave off the offense of yellow fever as fast as possible. Right now, there are documented cases. 4 or 5 that were buried here. They woke up 12 to 24 hours into being buried and freaked out when the bell rang. The guys came over here, they dug them out, they went on their normal lives. 15, 25 years in some cases. The majority of people whose bells rang, they were dug up, but they would usually die within 2 or 3 days. You know, oxygen deprivation, a lot of different things. Or just the actual yellow fever killed them. You know, so these people became known as dead ringers. The very few people who were lucky enough to survive going to live normal lives became known as Saved by the Bell. Now, all 3 of those are TV shows in the last 30 years. Some of them are good, some of them not so good, but just this random that all 3 of those races emanate right here from the cemetery. Come on through, guys. Now, the other main story has to do with what we were just talking about, the Civil War. All right? Now, beyond the massacre below us, I like to do this part stopping over here because the Havershams is right over here. The Havershams were a very large, influential family in the first 100 years here. And I like to tell their story next to their plot because one of the most questions I get all the time is, you know, do you believe in this stuff? What have you experienced? What's the craziest thing you've experienced? And so if you look up, you guys found us on Groupon, if you look up restaurant on Groupon, Yelp, TripAdvisor, more than likely the highest rated, the Old Pink House.
Oh yeah, we got a reservation.
Yeah?
there.
When are you going?
Sunday.
Sunday? What time?
I have no idea.
Oh.
Where are you going?
Are you guys all going together in a big group?
No, we're leaving out.
Oh. All right, so the Old Pink House is a very historic house.
Oh yeah.
It gets its name, the Old Pink House, because James Haversham Jr., who built it, he built it with a very specific imported brick that had a very high iron content, very red brick. Right? Now, if you were a rich property owner back then, you sometimes, we had 7 guys and 1 girl going to this dinner. A girl named Katie, who was a credit analyst working out of our South Carolina office, who come down, and the rest of us, a bunch of guys at this dinner. Head boss, big credit guy for the bank. I watched this guy down 13 diet 2 hours, pretty impressive night. And that ranch dressing makes a beeline right for her and I, those 2 seats. And she takes the bulk of it, having sat in Don's seat. I'm wearing a sport coat, and it all hits me too. But the craziest thing about this story is not just that happened, it's what happened after. And so in the Great Hall, inside the Pink House, much like Our Lady Janice over at McDonough's, there's a full-time maitre d' on the weekends. Every weekend there's a full-time maitre d'. For the last couple of years, it's very suave-looking, I think he's French, he's got a super, you know, pointy mustache on the outside, and he's just there to watch the room. Now, maitre d's primarily are there like, you know, if the waiter's not taking enough time, not refilling your drink, you raise your hand, the guy's gonna be there. But really on the weekends, he's there to be Johnny on the spot in terms of this paranormal activity. And so what happened next was just in a flash, the maitre d' and a female hostess or female server take Katie away to this private bathroom. She walks out of the building like 20 minutes later in a spa-like robe. They just keep them on there, on site just in case. And, you know, I got escorted to a bathroom. They gave us a club soda. You know, I just got the left side of my jacket hit. It wasn't a huge deal. But they dry cleaned my jacket for me. I picked it up the next day. It's a quicker turnaround time than my own dry cleaner. I started asking the guy, hey, how often does this happen? And he goes, man, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. And he goes, this is how much we have to prepare for this stuff. So the Pink House is one of the largest restaurants in town, guys. They have like 45 wait staff on payroll at any given time, probably 20 in the kitchen. You know, this is about 80 people in total that work there, including the bar staff. And so if you get a job there, you know, it's a very intense application process, one of the toughest server jobs to get. They're some of the highest paid servers downtown. And, you know, if you do get the job,
hear them shouting, first class ticket invitation, girl from New York, England and Jamaica every day.
Midway through, one of the managers pull you aside, say, hey, look, we really like you, we like your work ethic. You've been here 8 weeks now, you passed all the tests, you know the menu, good with your wines. We're gonna put you in the Great Hall this weekend. We're gonna see what Mrs. Bar is called Planter's Tavern Inn, all right? It's been there since the house was built. It's been an open tavern for the entirety of its history, just about. And so, if you don't get got by Mrs. Haversham in the Great Hall, but you do insult her, it's highly likely that she or Mr. Haversham will follow you to the basement. Now in the basement, there's two women's bathrooms. They're both women's bathrooms, side by side, left and right. And one of them has a portrait of Mrs. Haversham, smaller portrait. The other one has a portrait of Mr. Haversham. And women, especially women, have a knack of getting locked in the stalls. Only one stall inside the bathroom. It's a very small bathroom. And it's just one of those typical, kind of like your high school bathrooms. It's the fiberglass, plastic, little metal hinges. And more often than not, 2, 3, 4 times a month, one woman gets stuck in there. And of course, it's a public restroom. You don't want to crawl underneath. Nobody likes to do that in a public restroom. But my buddy Miguel, who I met through our incident there, he tells me that underneath the stairwell in a closet is an entire tool set to take apart the door any given time. Because it happens so often. They got so tired of it about 2 years ago, they brought in one of the local plumbing companies and they just ripped out the entire stall, piece by piece, just ripped it out, put a brand new stall in there, just fiberglass just made this year, brand new, very next weekend, lady got locked in. All right, so again, just happens to be the Havershams really haunt the place, and that's because when Mr. Haversham had built the place, he was a very rich man. There's a lot of rich, powerful.
Oh, that was old school.
Yes. Yes,
It's like
girl.
a pretty smooth ride in there for a first time.
Yes. Hold on. And they never saw our group again. Oops. I got you in the awkward intermediate moment there. Sorry. Post it on Facebook right now. Let me.
Watch out, Jen. Watch out. He's trying to get a drink.
And then this guy from Alabama. Roll Tide.
Anybody else drink? My time. And two.
Ramen Coke, ramen Coke, ramen Coke, Diet Coke, ramen Diet Coke.
Picture as well. Happy to take it for you.
Oh, you're gonna take a picture?
Yeah.
Hold on. Hold on, Jen, get in the picture.
Actually, no, hold my phone.
Property that they're banned from buying any further property here in the historic district. All right. But this particular piece of property is very unique, very interesting. There are no classes taught here. It is the administration building. I think one of these says reserved for president. This is their administration building. It's a very creepy old building. And in Savannah's entire history since 1733, we have only had 3 jails. The building you're looking at right now served as the second jail. This building here, just a moment, I'm pulling up to show you. Alright, guys, we're gonna walk right around the back here. We're gonna be on the south end of the cemetery. We'll finish up right there and then go to our last bar, okay?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Masters.
Hot dog.
Some whiskey. The last bar has this shot.
Whiskey and yeah?
Everybody remembers that movie, right? It was like the first $1 billion movie in the 90s. Really great movie. What you think about the main antagonist from that movie? The main antagonist from that movie was the next door neighbor kid named Sid. Everybody remembers that fucked up kid Sid, right? All right, so this boy Renee, this was in the first 5 or 10 years of Savannah's history. This boy Renee, he was Sid from Toy Story with animals. So he would catch, rodents, little squirrels, things like that. He'd cut them open and he would just fuck with them, and then he'd end up hanging some of them from the trees. Well, around 1739, about 7-8 years into the colony's history here, a little girl was found brutally cut up, murdered, and hung from this tree right over here. And so the authorities, this is still Wild West justice, the authorities pretty much knew that it was this boy, Renee, because it fit the profile, it fit the exact part of the cemetery that he was known to mutilate these little animals and rodents in and hang them up. And so they went to this boy's house, they arrested him, they threw him through a sham trial, and they hung him right here from this tree. within a week of arresting him for the crime. The only problem was is over the next 6 to 12 months, between 1739 and 1740, there were another 4 or 5 girls found brutally cut up and murdered. Unsolved murder spree in the first 10 years of the colony's history. And that boy was hung pretty much for nothing. He was a fucked up little kid, but he definitely didn't murder that girl. And we know that because, again, I have had no less than 5 or 6 people scream. I've looked the story up, and definitely was between 1739 and 1740, and they killed that boy. All right? Like I said, the cemetery is open 8 to 8 every day. Walk through it either early in the morning or right towards 7:30, 8 o'clock, right before it's getting ready to close. All right, guys, we're gonna walk around Caddy Corner. We're gonna pass by.
We love you. We love you, Tina.
One message.
You're okay. Congrats.
Andrea?
Hello, how are you? How are you doing?
It's been a long time.
Should have left you without a dope beat. Step 2, step 2, step 2, step 2, sippity sip dip, step to dip to do. That's it.
Come back to me. What do you? Don't start with me every time. Switch it up.
Loving, loving.
Jen. Go back to Sasha.
Come back to me.
Jen.
I need a good word.
I love you.
Hello. Come on. Passionate.
Oh, that's a good. Funny.
El Pasión.
Funny. Sweetheart.
Clogged in my penis. I can't get stuck.
This is my biscuit gravy.
She's like, we stayed up for hours. I'm like, I can't believe it.
I sleep like a baby.
It's really relaxing.
It is a good place to relax.
Yes. It's pretty out here. Really nice.
Rob Zimmer, like, Eric paid thousands of dollars for his brother to go to rehab.
We have an event in this city like no other. And y'all, that event is called St. Practice Day. And y'all, on St. Practice Day, they get together and practice drinking for the next weekend.
The house, the famous telegram to President Lincoln was sent, offering the entire city of Savannah as a Christmas gift, along with 150 guns, plenty of ammunition, and 25,000 bales of cotton. President Lincoln accepted that offer, and therefore Savannah, it was not burned. And also inside of that house, that's where General Sherman and 25 African-American city leaders, that's where they met to discuss Field Order Number 15, Volunteer Armory. Take a look out front on the sidewalk at the cannon, get a double look, because that is the real thing you're looking at.
Really cool. Who said no to that?
Tina! We should have done that! No, the bride-to-be doesn't have to pedal. Like, my cousin didn't pedal. We all, as bridesmaids, all pedaled.
I would just move my feet.
Like,
Do it! Do it!
Oh, hell no!
What's that?
It's a Rice Krispie treat.
Your favorite?
My favorite.
Where's the hot dog? Where's the hot dog? Huh?
I'm in line to purchase.
I thought you're talking about like hot dog.
We have code words. And apparently all of us forgot it.
Like hot dog, but it was. And that was Guten.
Yeah, something
But then hot dog really stuck better.
Are you just
Right.
Watch your step, guys. Oh, guys, I found a penny. Hold on, find a penny, pick it up.
Pick it up.
As long as it's heads up, heads up.
No,
No, don't touch it.
it doesn't matter.
Don't touch
I'm
it.
doing it. Only rich people pick up money.
Right.
One day I'm going to be rich.
Is that how we work now?
Yes, this is a 2017
You win.
penny.
With triplets.
What?
What?
You will be a millionaire with triplets.
Triplets, huh?
Yes.
No, no, we don't need that expansion.
I don't know
We don't,
about all
we
that.
don't need the expansion there.
She will, you know, she
One at a
She
time
has-
is best.
a possibility.
Just because you had twins doesn't
In
mean
your
you need to
30s.
wish that on
That's my
everyone.
doctor
Is that what you had? Twins?
Yes.
Twins.
That's my doctor said.
Yeah, but
Women
you were
in
in
their
your
30s.
30s when you had your twins.
It's either his family history or
Not ours. No.
okay.
Either one.
You're really
Either
trying
side.
your best. Not to,
Either side, no.
how about twins?
No.
You're gonna
Do you
Did
have
she
twins
want
in your family, Jen?
two at once?
What about him? Just your lucky day?
Yes.
Oh, I thought she was doing something.
What would you suggest? Like, is this like a normal one? 'Cause that's
Like honey. Like an avocado.
So sweet. You can be by yourself. We're getting some liquor. Woohoo. Very cute. Oh yeah, thank you. Caught in the act.
Found you. Caught in the act of buying vodka.
Hot dog, hot dog.
Is fancy.
What's the hot dog for?
Your mouth. I really do want a hot dog.
Yes.
That's plenty. Everybody's pretty good.
There's 10 of us
Pretty
now.
good.
Now that Marianne's here.
Yes. I guess I need to call the Uber now, huh?
They should,
Yeah,
yeah,
they
should
should
be
right there because everyone else
should call the Uber.
right there.
There's down. We are getting.
Go crazy, go crazy.
Oh, go crazy.
Gay girl. Gay girl. Yes, 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 yes,
More,
yes.
more. Oh my gosh. That look awesome.
Yeah, so beautiful. Yes.
her breath away.
Which, listen, I don't give a shit. I work in a hospital. Sleep around 20 times a night if you pay me to do
Where's my food?
She's a real big ass for me. You'll see it's everybody got a fun around. Everybody got a fun around. My love, baby, that's forever. Friendship, my love, I got to give. Take it too easy. That's what faith is. You wanna be my lover? Yes, 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 yes.
Everyone's like, motorboat. Your hair's knotted. Brush this. I can't. Don't you want to touch my hiney?
Andrea texted?
Yeah.
Babe. Oh, you guys are you guys are in a group together.
Jen.
It's all about the light. It's all about the light.
Take a photo, Jen.
I did. I can.
No, because I think it started yesterday.
I need that picture. Who's gonna eat the slider?
Like maybe in their minds they know that they're getting married.
Yeah,
Eventually.
exactly.
And it's like, and you know her, she doesn't like a ring. Like she's not about like the big proposal. Like,
No, and